I've been spending a lot of time in the Proverbs recently. It's a good thing to do. One of the things I love is just the shortness of the Proverbs. So take this one for Proverbs 4. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom, though it will cost everything you have, get understanding. My hope that is, as we go through this, I'm going to give you 7 Proverbs, 7 precepts to help you think about how you craft your challenge. The only caveat that I'm going to give the only thing that I'm going to conflict with this particular proverb, Proverb 7, is this understanding won't cost you anything. I'm giving it to you for free. So that means that if you have questions, please ask. Answers are going to be free. As we go along, if you've got questions, just put them in the chat window. If I can answer them as I go, I'll answer them as I go. If you've got questions as we go on, I'll loop round to them at the end. Yeah, and I'm going to speak a little bit slower because I need to slow down. Right. So the first precept for writing a hackathon challenge for Hack is a good hackathon challenge is always going to be grounded in clear gospel ambition. This is what sets Hack apart from any other hackathon that we do, that your challenges must be rooted in gospel ambition. If you go along to an industry hackathon, it'll be, we've built this new API. What cool thing can you build with this API? Or if you go along to a a commercial one, it's how do we sell this product or something like this. With a hackathon, we've got to be thinking through our gospel lenses. Actually, how is what we are challenging people to do motivated by our faith? So, for example, in a hackathon that we ran as part of Kingdom Code a couple of years ago, one of the challenges was quite simply, how do we get people to read the Bible more? We know that scripture engagement is really important. And we want to make sure that actually our gospel ambition is that we do this. Precept number 1 is a good hackathon challenge is grounded in clear gospel ambition. Precept number 2, a good hackathon challenge knows what the problem it wants to solve, not how it's going to be solved. Now, this is going to be very much dependent on the size of your hack, will depend on what you are doing. But if you've got probably more than 5 people in your hackathon, the chances are actually you're going to have 2 teams working on the same thing. And actually, if you've got if you're giving them the solution, we want an app that does this and looks like this and solves this problem, you're limiting creativity. Actually, what you want to be doing with your challenge is having a fairly broad idea of going, here's a problem, and we want you to get on board with the problem, and we want you to dig deep into the problem, not we're going to tell you how to solve it. So this came out of the learning from our first hackathon that we did in London, where we basically said we need an app that will help first responders in a disaster zone report back what's happening on the ground. So the challenge was build an app that does exactly this thing. And what that meant was that we had 3 teams working on exactly the same thing, and unsurprisingly, they built exactly the same thing. Now, if you've got a hackathon of where you literally just got 1 team, so you've got a 5-person hack, this is great. Tell me the problem to solve. But if you've got multiple people working on multiple things, you don't want to give the solution. You want to give here's a broad problem, not the solution to the problem. Precept number 3. A good hackathon challenge faces into a real and specific problem, not a made-up one. So, for example, don't go, oh, how do we keep these guys busy? What could we do? Instead, actually have a look around. In your city, what's the biggest problem? You know, kind of actually, you know, if you are in a city that is still kind of not able to meet up, for example, you know, a genuine problem for our churches right now is how do we communicate as church online well? You know, that's a real and specific problem that a whole load of churches are facing into right now, as opposed to going, oh, I've just got to make something up. Face into a real and specific problem that we can all own, that we can all love, that actually everyone in your team goes, in your hackathon goes, oh, I want to solve this problem because I empathize with it, I relate to it, and I can see that it's got genuine impact if we can crack it. So a good hackathon challenge faces into a real and specific problem. Precept number 4. A good hackathon challenge is narrow enough to give focus, but wide enough for creativity. And this is again kind of like linking back to kind of precept number 2, where actually you want to give, you want to point people into a problem, where people can really drill in and can really tunnel vision into a thing, but actually is broad enough that you can actually have several different solutions to the problem. So, for example, what a challenge statement that would be too wide is, what can we do in response to COVID? Like as hackathon attendees, what can we do in response to COVID? Like anything. We could do absolutely anything, and nobody is focused on anything in that. There are so many different things that we could do. Actually, to be able to drill down and say, kind of, you know, let's go back to that Bible reading thing and go, you know, how might we encourage people to read their Bible more? You know, the focus of it is people reading the Bible, scripture engagement. The breadth of it is that I'm not actually saying necessarily how do I get Christians to read their Bible more. Actually, this might be an evangelistic focus. This might be, how do I get kind of non-Christians to engage in the Bible? One team's going down an evangelistic scope, while another team's going, how do I do my morning Bible reading better? It's narrow enough to give focus, but it's wide enough to take on creativity. Precept number 5 is a good hackathon challenge is aware of the people in the room or the virtual room and their skill sets. Or to put it another way, if you're doing a hackathon for AI work, don't give design challenges. If you've got a hackathon with designers, don't give AI work. You know, the AI team have no idea how to design a beautiful interface. They know how to make machines do a whole load of learning. The designers have got no idea how to do any of the technical stuff. So so when you get your responses back from who's coming along to your hackathon, if you suddenly go, oh, hang on a second, we've got a whole load of back-end developers, the way that you're going to craft those challenge statements is going to be very different if knowing who's coming. Sometimes you won't know who's coming along to your hackathon, and that's absolutely fine to not know. In that case, then you've got to be really careful then about how you specify your hackathon. Alternatively, if you want to run a hackathon in a very specific bent of kind of going, actually, this is going to be an AI hack, then actually you can be really bold and upfront right from the beginning as your chat and make your challenge statements right there and say, a good, using artificial intelligence, how might we? At that point, kind of the artificial intelligence guys are straight involved and they know this hackathon is for me. So precept 5, a good hackathon challenge is aware of the people in the room and their skill set. Precept number 6, a good hackathon challenge is easy to explain in a short sentence, but can be expanded on. I would really encourage you to think really carefully about actually that sentence that you use to explain in what your challenge is. For example, the Bible engagement one, how might we encourage people to read their Bible more? Like, That's a sentence that that suddenly kind of, for you guys, you're already worrying on it. You're already thinking about actually how might I solve that? You understand from that sentence actually what the problem is and what the need is. We need a solution to the problem of how might we get people to read their Bible more. Another example of this would be how might we equip church planters to know where to plant their next church? The idea there being is one sentence. It shows the user need, the church planter, and the direction that we're going in, where they should plant their next church. That, for the record, if you're doing one with data and AI, that's a really great one for the data and AI folk. But actually, it's explainable in a short sentence, so you can put that as a bold header on your website. But then there's actually a whole lot of scope now for when someone comes up to you and says, okay, right, tell me a little bit more about this. You can then start talking or writing or speaking to a video or doing a podcast episode all about how what's behind this challenge. So kind of in London, I'm aware that there's such a diversity of churches within London, and actually there are some really key areas of London that don't have churches in it. And actually, we want to be really strategic in where we plant the churches. So as a result, kind of we want to equip those church planters to plant in the right places where they're going to have the maximum gospel impact. And suddenly, kind of, I've gone from a short sentence, and I'm now actually talking about it much further. So a good hackathon challenge is easy to explain in a short sentence, but can be expanded on. Finally, precept number 7. A good hackathon challenge has experts in the room to help and support. You're inviting tech folk into your hackathon because they're experts in technology. And kind of like, so often we can kind of go, oh, our hackathons need to be full of mentors to help with the tech. Actually, let me encourage you, you don't need tech mentors in a hackathon. They're nice to have, but they're not necessary. Instead, the experts you need to have on hand are people who know the background of the challenge that you're in. So, for example, if you've got if you're doing a Bible engagement challenge, what you really need is someone who is really expert in teaching the Bible, and to people who aren't really interested in teaching the Bible, because they'll be able to tell you all of the things why people don't really want to read the Bible. You've got, if you're doing a church planting one, you've got to do something. You've got to have people in the room who are able to answer the questions about actually why is church planting so hard? Why don't we go to these areas? What information, what data points do you need? Otherwise, you're going to throw your teams into doing challenges, but they're not going to have any support to know if what they're doing is useful. Let the tech people in the room be the experts in the tech, but have experts behind the challenges who are able to be experts and expand what the challenges are. Now, those experts might be you. So, for example, kind of like if you've got a background in church leadership and you know a problem that your church is facing into, be the expert behind a challenge around something that you're facing, a problem you're facing within your church family. But it might be kind of you want to go and work with other organizations and bring them into your hackathon as well. So in London, the way that we do it is we ask different missionaries and different ministries to basically say, hey, can we craft a challenge statement around the work that you do, with the idea then that they are then in the room with us as we're working on their problem, so they can be the experts in the room to help and support. That was really quick, so let me go back over those one by one. A good hackathon challenge is grounded in gospel ambition. It knows the problem it wants to solve. It faces into a real and specific problem. It's narrow enough to give focus, but wide enough for creativity. It's aware of the people in the room and their skill sets. It's easy to explain in a short sentence, but can be expanded on if you need, and has experts behind it in the room to help and support. Those are my 7 precepts. That's not exhaustive. There are probably many other things one could say, but that's probably enough to get you going.